Hi, I'm Bill Heath, Superintendent of Lincoln County Schools. Today we'd like to present to you one of the new plans or new options that we have for our students and their schedules during this COVID-19 pandemic. Joining me here today is Ms. Christine Hunter, one of our instructional supervisors, to help present these plans. And the plans we're presenting to you today are our modified virtual plans. And to start with, let me just reiterate our goal that we've had ever since this pandemic started. Our goal is to offer in-person learning as many days as possible for our students. We want them in front of our teachers as many days as possible. We feel that's the best thing for teaching and learning for our children. But today we're specifically going to look at a couple of essential questions that we have found that we need to address as we end the first semester and start looking at the plans for the second semester. Essential question number one today that we'd like to take a look at is, how do we meet the needs of our students who do not have internet access at home when we are in a virtual learning situation? And essential question number two is, what can we, Lincoln County Schools, do going forward to improve and enhance teaching and learning for our kids when we have to be in a virtual setting due to the pandemic? The answer to both of those is what we're calling our modified virtual. And I'd like to get into the details of that in a moment. But before I do, I just want to remind you of what our schedule looks like for January 4th through January 8th. And that's the first week after Christmas vacation. We sent out a presentation recently, and you can find it on our websites and on our social media sites. But on January 4th, we're asking all students whose last names begin with the letters A through K to attend school. They'll have a regular school day. Transportation will be provided. Buses will be running. On Tuesday, the remainder of the students, we ask you to come to school on Tuesday, and you'll get the same lessons. Again, we'll be providing transportation and so forth. On those 2 days, at the district level, we will be gathering our numbers. We will be looking at what's best going forward for our students and for our families in regard to teaching and learning and offering school. On Wednesday of that week, we plan to make an announcement. That's Wednesday, January 6th. We'll make an announcement of what the following weeks will look like. Also, on Wednesday, from Wednesday, January 6th through Friday, January 8th, our students will treat those days for you like a weather day or a stockpile day. No assignments will be sent home for you. The only students that will actually be in school on those days, we'll have some high school kids taking end of course state testing, but those students know who they are already. So for most of our students though, on Wednesday through Friday, January 6th through the 8th, are days that are much like weather days in the past. Our employees, our teachers, our staff will be in the buildings. They'll be working on plans because they'll know, just like you, by Wednesday morning what the plans are for January 11th forward. And as I mentioned, we'll be making that decision and announcing it by January 6th. And in addressing the essential questions that I mentioned earlier, modified virtual is the answer to those two questions, and it's one of the options that all of our schools will have, and I want to talk about that a little more in detail. But I do want to mention that at the high school, at Lincoln County High School, they do have an additional option. It's called the AB schedule. I'm not going to talk about that much in this presentation, but high school parents and students, be sure and watch that presentation that we've made and released. But today we're going to talk about the modified virtual plans. But as a parent and students, I want you to always know that you've got the option. If you feel like the options we have chosen, the schedules we have chosen, and what we're providing for you and your child, if you feel like that right now during this pandemic, for health reasons or for any reason that's not the best choice for you and your child, you have the option to go full virtual at any time. And I would encourage you, if you have those concerns, to talk to your principal, talk to your teachers, and then make the decision that's best for you and your family. So, in looking at January 11th and going forward, again, this is a little bit of a review. At all of our schools, the number one response that we want to have is we want everybody in person. We want everybody in person every day. For specific reasons, such as quarantines, positive cases, number of staff members, that's not always an option. If you reflect back through the first semester, as the semester was beginning to come to an end, we found all of our schools being virtual. We had pivoted to virtual for the last week or two. So we have plans in case we can't be in person. Now at the high school, you can see on the right side of this slide, there are 3 other options other than in person. There's the A-B schedule, the modified virtual, which is what we're talking about today, and the full virtual. But specifically, I do want to highlight our pre-K through 8th grade schools. The options that you have, there are 3 options. In person, the modified virtual, which we're talking about today, and the full virtual. At this time, I would tell you as a parent, in being prepared for January 11th, really the 2 options that we're looking at the most for you in our K-8 schools, pre-K-8 schools, are the in-person and the modified virtual. So please pay close attention to this presentation, dig into it, look for information coming from your principal, and call and ask questions or email us with questions if there's anything on here that you need clarification on, because it's a very good chance that in-person or modified, one of those 2 will be the options. So if we're not able to go in person, very good chance that the pre-K-8s will be on the modified virtual. One comment about the full virtual going forward, we've learned over the first semester that we have to make some changes to better meet the needs of our kids. And that's what we're presenting to you today. So this time I'd ask Ms. Hunter to take a few moments and tell us what some of those lessons that we learned from the first semester are and what we're doing about those.
Okay, one of the first things that we learned is that nothing replaces a student being in front of his or her teacher. And as Dr. Heath has reiterated, our main goal is to have in-person instruction as much as possible. So when we've had to shift to virtual settings for some of our schools in the first semester, we realized that we needed to have options for students who do not have internet access. And we also learned that providing some assistance for students in a live setting is also what is best whenever possible.
Can I ask you to talk a little bit more about the internet access? You know, we have a percentage of our families without internet access.
Yes.
And what have we heard in regard to how have we been meeting their needs, or have we been sending packets? What have we been doing?
Well, as in the spring, we did send packets home to students who did not have the capability to access the internet instruction that teachers were providing via videos and those kinds of things. But as some schools, where there be different grade levels or different sets of students have had to shift to virtual, then we realized that a lot of our students were able to have synchronous instruction, meaning whatever time that they were supposed to be in class for first period, then their first period teacher was able to provide instruction along with her in-person students.
Okay, so we've learned in this first semester that children who have access at home, or even some children that don't have access at home, are able to take advantage of some of the hot spots that we have, and the parents can get them into a zone where they have internet access, that they can log on to our lessons. We did that sporadically throughout our district, and we found that being very successful, and that's called Synchronous?
Synchronous instruction, yes.
Okay, synchronous instruction and learning, good.
Yes, and so as I had just said, we've learned that a large percentage of our students are able to log in synchronously, which means at the same time, and stream along with their teacher as they're teaching students who have either been in person or students who have had to be quarantined, and for instance, if the whole grade level has had to be
So that makes me think of a question. So these families that do not have internet access,
yes,
obviously if they can't get to a hotspot and get that access, their children aren't able to log on synchronously.
Yes.
Do we have plans on what to do with them, or am I jumping the gun and that's what you're about to talk about?
That's going to be in the next slide.
Okay, so let me go to the next slide then. So this is our modified virtual. These are our plans and what the weekly schedule looks like. In the future, if we have to send one of our schools in, or have to pivot one of our schools to a virtual setting, more than likely it will be a modified virtual setting, because we've learned from those lessons that Ms. Hunter just talked about that we need to do a few things differently to better meet the needs teaching and learning for our kids, all of our kids. So Ms. Hunter, will you go through this schedule, this weekly schedule with us, and we'll see if we have any questions to follow up with.
Sure. So on Mondays and Fridays, the schools would be closed to students coming into the buildings. All students will be presented virtual lessons synchronously, as we just talked about, based on their own regular classroom schedule. The students already have their class schedule, and if a new schedule needs to be provided, that will also be provided to students. However, for students who do not have internet access, the videos will be recorded and published into Google Classroom for students. Then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we will have a lab setting for students to come in, either from 8 to 11 or from 12 to 3, for students to either receive assistance on any lessons they may not understand or to download materials. Lunch will be provided on that day. However, we will not be providing transportation on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Wednesdays, specifically for those students who do not have internet access, we will be providing bus transportation just as they normally would if we were on an in-person setting, and students can then come to school and either stream their lessons on that day or download materials, or both. And they can also receive instructional assistance on that day. And as we said, buses will be provided to students.
Okay, so on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, our schools will be a hub of learning in that we will have different groups of kids in there. And it sounds like there'll be a lot of different things going on, because teachers may be in their classrooms delivering lessons at a certain time, because as I understand it, our principals will be delivering to the parents their schedule if we have to go modified virtual. And it may say, hey, if your child's in the 8th grade, they'll have a math lesson at 8 o'clock every day under a virtual setting, modified virtual. They may have science at 9. That's just an example, but each principal will be sending that information home. So teachers will be in their room delivering instruction. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, there will be kids in the building who maybe go to the lab,
Yes.
or there will be our educational assistants or other employees providing assistance.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and on Wednesdays, we're actually going to run buses for the kids that do not have internet. So they will actually have an extra day to get assistance, but also to download those video lessons that they may not were able to get when we were sending them out live.
And it's a normal school day. They would be in school for the full
And
day.
it's a normal full day. Okay, awesome. Now, kindergarten is a little different because we do not have devices for our kindergarten students, but we'll be sharing out more information about kindergarten later on, and specifically if we have to make adjustments in what our kindergarten schedule looks like. But for now, we are talking about modified virtual replacing the old virtual as you know it, and that if we have to go virtual, whether it's one school or two schools or all our schools, we will be looking at a modified setting that looks very similar to this. So in summary, the essential questions were, how do we meet the needs of our students who do not have internet access? That was essential question number one. Well, we're offering a full day on Wednesdays for those children to be in school if we are in modified virtual. We're running buses. If your child doesn't ride a bus, you can bring your child to school on that Wednesday if you do not have internet access. We'll also have our doors open on Tuesdays and Thursdays that can assist those students. So I think that is the big change, one of the big changes from what we've done virtually in the first semester. Essential question number two, what can Lincoln County Schools do going forward to improve and enhance teaching and learning when we are virtual? You heard Ms. Hunter talk about the synchronous learning. We'll be delivering lessons on a schedule. If we're modified virtual, we're opening the doors to all students on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you need help, if you need to come in and download lessons, if you need intervention or assistance of any kind. So that is the second main change we're making from the old virtual that we used during the first semester to this modified virtual that we'll be using going forward when we have to go virtual. Again, no decision is made, but we wanted to make sure you understood that modified virtual is one of the options. and we wanted to try to explain it to you the best that we could. Ms. Hunter, do you have anything else you want to add to this?
No, January 11th, moving forward, then we do have options, and that was one of our main goals, is to have in-person instruction for students.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for helping out and for assisting here. And so at that point, I'd like to say, we'd ask you to keep practicing those good, healthy, and safe practices out there, and we will do our best to take care of your children when they're able to be in school.